Okay, welcome everybody. Today is Tuesday the 27th of February 2024. It's 10 a.m. We're in the wonderful surroundings of the Mancroft Room at City Hall in Norwich. My name is John Fuller. I'm just going to pass over to our committee clerk, Jackie Roger, to make some preliminary announcements.
Welcome to Norwich City Council for the Greater Norwich Development Partnership Board. This is the first meeting in a while, and the first item is election of chair. May I receive nominations for the chair, please? Councillor Neil.
I would nominate John Fuller, Councillor Fuller, to become chair.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Seconded by Councillor Stoddart. May I put that to the vote, please? I think that's unanimous.
Well, thank you very much indeed. The first item on my agenda in that case is to canvass options for the vice chairman, and I'd like to propose, if I may, Councillor Susan Holland from Broadland Council. And Mike is seconding that. Thank you for that, Mike. Are there any others? Doesn't appear to be, in which case, Susan, congratulations. You are Vice Chairman of the Greater Norwich Local Plan Committee. Good. Okay, well, look, let's go to the agenda. There's quite a thick bunch of papers, 140 pages odd. Are there any apologies for absence? Sue?
Yes, I need to apologise to Councillor Booth, I'm afraid, for unable to attend.
That's Councillor Booth. Anybody else missing? Yes, Josh Willis from.
Josh Willis has been called in to interview for work, so he can't make it.
Okay, good. And were we expecting Graham Kay or? Right, we've got a problem here.
I don't think it's obviously her name, isn't it?
Right, sorry for those watching at home. Can we just iron out some technical details? Kay, wave if you can hear us. No. Well, could someone go offline and who's going to go? Who's got Kay's number? Let's get on the chat.
Could everybody use their microphones and you press the green button?
Okay, yeah. Okay, Kay, are you back in the room? No.
I'll send her a message now.
Right, send her a message and we'll see. Okay, well, we'll see if we can bring her forward. I think though Graham Plant was on the list and isn't here either, so we'll accept his apologies alongside those of Lana Hensel. Right, okay. Are there any declarations of interest for those in the room while we try and sort out County Council IT stuff? No? Okay. It says on my agenda here there's an opportunity for questions from members of the public in terms of reference. I don't see any members of the public here in the chamber, so...
No, Councillor Fuller, I haven't received any. Normally, the terms of reference say that they need to send questions through. We haven't received any.
Okay. Well, there aren't any questions. We'll take that as a good thing. There we are. So, minutes of the last meeting, which looks like was in November 2021. I can hardly believe it, but that's not to say we've been idle in the meantime. Since then, of course, we've had the final bits of the inspection and so forth. Are there any matters of accuracy that anybody wishes to raise? There's only Lisa, myself and Mike who looks like they're on that sheet. Any points? No. In that case, in due course, I will sign those as a true and accurate record. Right. Yeah, Lisa's just going to try and track down. We've got you.
Access, do you think? For some reason, this Teams meeting is not working.
Right, Kay, we've got you.
Can you hear Stuart?
No, Stuart's frozen.
Yeah, I'm with you, and hear everybody loud and clear.
Right. Can you hear us, Kay?
I'm going to leave and dial back in.
I'm just going to take a short adjournment while we try and sort these IT issues out. Just bear with us, please. On the substantive item of the paper, agenda item 6 is on page 21 of the printed sheet. But before I pass to Mike Burrell, I'd just like to sort of frame the discussion we're about to have. I think 8 years on, and I'm looking around the table at some of the officials, but amongst the members, I think it's only Lisa, you and myself that have sort of stayed the entire course over 8 years. They say success has many fathers, and I think a lot of people are going to want to sort of claim credit for the work that we've done, and it is invidious, but at this moment I'd just like to mention a few people that have been sort of helped us along the way, because so often it's the councillors and the members of this committee, you know, that are the embodiment of the local plan, but so much work's been done by others. Sandra Eastall, who took the joint core strategy, which is the immediate predecessor plan to our own one, and substantially her work continues in the review that Mike's about to give us. Amy Broadhead. Helen, you predate me at South Norfolk by 1 year, so I think this is your 22nd year at South Norfolk, but you cut your teeth here at Norwich City Council before that. 40 years in planning, isn't it? Or was it 30?
40.
40 years in planning is a combination of Norwich and South Norfolk. I'm looking across at Graham, who again sort of has been a guiding hand here. Phil, of course. Mike, Richard, Matt Tracy, come in lately. Tig Armstrong, are you watching in Australia? Because you played a big hand as well in the earlier parts of all this. And that's before we start to consider Brenda, Bill Borrett, Andrew Proctor, Kay, yourself, Sean, and myself, and obviously Sue, who's our most recent addition to the family. Oh, and Alan Waters as well. And Alan, yes, and Alan too. So there's a huge number of people who've had a hand in this, so please don't blame it all on me. No. So here we are. When you think back in 2015, you've got to feel sorry for the postman. We needed about 8,500 homes to top up what I'm going to call the joint core strategy, and 110,000 homes worth of land came forward. And then later on, additional homes came on top of that. So the poor old postman nearly broke his back with all the bids that came in, and subsequently all the rounds of consultation as well. Let's not forget that during the inspections we had COVID, and a lot of the inspections were held online, socially distanced. That was difficult. We've had our tussles. I've certainly tussled with the inspectors, who I felt at some stage were exceeding their powers, and we've tussled amongst ourselves. That's healthy. But across the boundaries and divides, we've really patched it up, come through. I think we've got a really good plan now with a purpose for our place, something we can be proud of. So it's in that sort of context, 8 years worth of hard work, that I'd like to ask Mike, you've been our programme manager all the way through, having studied as Sandra's understudy in the previous plan, mostly. You can correct that if you wish. Take us through a little presentation, which I think puts some flesh on the bones that I just laid out.
So I am going to presentation. First of all, I'll just talk about the recommendations. So from page 21 of our papers, page 21, the summary is this report covers the outcome of the examination into the Greater Norwich Local Plan and recommends adoption of the plan. So that's the stage we're at now. We've gone through examination. The inspectors have found the plan sound, subject to making the modifications they require. So what we're considering here today is that members of all of Norwich and South Norfolk councils recommend that the cabinets and councils amend the inspectors' reports and include those required many modifications and adopt the GNLP, which is both of those are available from links on the paper. So Leanne, could you start that presentation, please?
So, you just need to click it now.
So I'm now going to do a presentation which, because not everybody, as Councillor Phillips pointed out, has been involved throughout this process, it gives a bit of background, again, just more recent events. So first of all, what's a local plan about? They are critical documents setting the development framework for an area. How do they do that? They contain planning policies, which are the basis for deciding whether to approve plan applications. That's our basic role. They allocate sites for development, houses, employment areas, and so on, based on evidence, local needs, and opportunities. So a big part of the examination is proving that we have the evidence for the strategy that we have proposed, and we've been successful in doing so. They ensure that buildings and places are sustainable, beautiful, and high quality. So design quality is really key now. That's risen up the agenda in recent years. Now, I know this is important for many people. They facilitate infrastructure delivery. So we've been working hard with the infrastructure providers, the Norwich County Council and part of this partnership. So that includes schools, community facilities, transport, green infrastructure, and healthcare as well. So green infrastructure is things like paths, wildlife areas, woodlands, and so on. They protect and enhance natural, built, and historic environments. And they help us through planning to respond to climate change and support nature recovery. So it's green infrastructure that we're planning for and has been delivered over recent years is key to responding to climate change and supporting nature recovery. Now, talking more specifically about the Greater Norwich Local Plan itself, it uses updated evidence to provide our new growth strategy and the sites to meet our growth needs. It's critically, it helps to address the housing crisis. It meets growth needs, so we had to establish what our need was and then show how we're going to meet it. It assists delivery, so it's really important that having sites allocated in the plan assists their delivery. The developers have the competence to put in plan applications. It provides for a mix of homes, including affordable housing. Next point, it sets build standards. Water, a critical issue in our area. We set the most demanding standards of county water. It has standards for space and adaptable homes, so that homes will be adapted through people that can be adapted as people get older. The next bullet relates to economic issues. So it supports inclusive economic growth. So both the high value sectors, and in our part of the world, these are food and health research, digital creative industries, high value engineering, and these mainly in the tech corridor. So tech corridor is Cambridge to Norwich corridor, and known as the Cambridge to Norwich tech corridor, and other employment, not just those high value sectors. And overall, it supports a move to the post-carbon economy. Now specifically, this next point relates specifically to design. So we require, through Policy 2, we require sustainability statements, which will need to show how developments will be well designed, both in terms of sustainability and being good places to live. And design codes are coming through. They're coming through from government, and our policies promote these. It protects and enhances the environment, so it requires green infrastructure. A visitor pressure tariff in our area that relates to the rules. And I'm sure you're all aware the issue that's arisen in the last couple of years. We have a policy to address nutrient neutrality. Plans for infrastructure to support growth. So working with the providers, including healthcare, we worked with healthcare providers. So there are plans for 7 to 9 new healthcare facilities and 5 to 7 extensions, with highways and education. So there are plans for 12 new primary and 1 secondary school. And we worked with utilities such as Anglian Water. And it has policies on how for growth in villages to meet local needs and support local services, we term that social sustainability. Policy 7.5 also covers self and custom build outside settlement boundaries in rural areas. Now I'm just going to briefly talk you through the actual strategy itself, which is shown graphically. I won't talk through this in any detail, but that is the key diagram for the plan. So when you have some time, please do have a look through that. So that shows it in that form, it shows it graphically. I'm just going to talk through it briefly here.
Mike, did you just want to explain the special meaning of the word key diagram Because it's not just a picture, it has legal force.
It does, yeah, thank you. It's, this key diagram, this summarises the plan, basically. It summarises our strategy. And this has major significance. So, for example, it identifies the northeast growth triangle for employment and housing growth, the city centre and the A11 corridor, the tech corridor. So, having locations identified with this key diagram is an important part of our strategy. So just to go back, the first I just want to mention, Councillor Phillips talks about the main examination we've had. It was a fairly lengthy examination. The main reason for that was we had to consult and dictate travel sites. That's one of the main issues that was covered in the examination. Something that the inspectors went into great detail, and they always do, is site deliverability. It's called the housing trajectory. We had to evidence on a site-by-site basis that all the sites we had on our plan will be delivered. East Norwich was quite considerable discussion on that, and we have a paper on the agenda today about that. And I mentioned earlier neutrality policy. This issue arose during the examination. So we produced a policy that addresses neutrality requirements. The strategy has been found sound by the inspectors, and it says again, with the modifications. Now, it builds from existing plans, as I've always talked about that earlier. We already had what's ended up being 68% in total. Their homes, these bullet points. We already had a number of those homes, locations that were identified in existing plans. So it provides for up to 45,000, just over 45,000 homes from 2018 to 2038. So around 8,000 of those have been built already. It establishes a strategic growth area. This is the Norwich urban area and the Cambridge-Norwich Tech corridor. 62% of those homes are in the Norwich urban area, and they're going to be provided by infill, regeneration, including East Norwich, to maximise brownfield capacity and on urban extensions. So we already have, such as North East Growth Triangle, we already have a number of urban extensions. Through this plan, we now have a major site at Tabram and an additional site at Spredston in our plan. 15% of the growth will be in the main towns. There are new sites at Aylsham, Diss have a neighbourhood plan. They've identified homes in their neighbourhood plan as well. Halston and Wyndham. No additional sites in Lord Stratton. No Lord Stratton has been identified for growth through previous plans, and that's now come to fruition. 8% in key service centres. So this is large villages, small towns such as Acle, Blowfield, Hingham and Loddon. We have new sites there. 9% in the village clusters. I mentioned earlier social sustainability in the South North, which is having its own dedicated plan for its villages. So there's a focus on ensuring there's enough growth in villages to keep services going and to breathe life into the village. And then 6% will be from reform. We've also identified employment plans. We have strategic sites, so these include Hethel, Wyndham, the Research Park, the City Centre, should be on there, Longwater, Growth Triangle, and around the airports, and local sites. So significant amounts of economic growth. I won't say more about the key diagram. So now moving on. Anticipated timetable to adoption. When I first wrote this presentation, we hadn't received the inspector's report. We have now, so we'll receive that on the 20th of February. That's on our website, people are being informed about it. The decision to adopt the plan must be made by each of the three councils. Because it forms part of the adopted plan for each council, we adopt it separately. So Broadland's Cabinet will consider it on the 19th of March and Council on the 28th of March. Norwich's Cabinet, 6th of March, Council on the 12th of March. And South Norfolk, 18th of March and 25th of March. Now, adoption notice will be published the day after each council meeting, with the exception of Broadland, because their council is the day before Good Friday, so that'll be at the start of April, that'll be the adoption notice. So So we publish an adoption notice for each district. Then, hang on, I just need to go forward one more. There is a 6-week legal challenge period. So challenges to the plan can be made for 6 weeks after that, but that will be a different period for each authority because we're adopting on different days. Okay, now this is the really important part of where we are now. The benefits of adoption, and I would say they are overwhelming, the benefits of adoption. And that's how the plan, how the report concludes. So what are those benefits? Well, first of all areas must have a national planning policy framework compliant to local plan adopted by December 2026. We have to have them. And government is getting very firm with those local authorities who are not creating themselves adequate enough to do so. Secondly, many of our current local plan documents, Councillor Fuller talks about the joint core strategy, and we had site allocation plans that came from that. They're close to running out, 2026 for many of them. Though we still have area action plans for places like North East Growth Triangle. We still have our development management policies and neighbourhood plans that we retain. A successful joint strategy is a considerable success. This is something we should be very proud of. It's only the second joint plan nationally to be reviewed, and working cross boundaries is a difficult thing to do, and we've done excellently over a period of many years now. Plan-led joint working provides greater certainty for economic investment in our area. So private money is much more likely to come into our area once we have an adopted plan. And related to this, it can help access national funding streams as well. Continuity, it further develops the recent strategic approaches to joint core strategy and allows for future new settlements if that's the direction we choose to take in the future. It supports strategic growth, thriving communities, and the enhancement of infrastructure and services. So when we were doing consultations, the main thing people were concerned about, they're saying, yes, we accept the EU loans, but where's the infrastructure coming from? Where's that healthcare infrastructure? And so on. So this plan does that. We've worked, as I said, and I'll say it again, we work very closely with the providers. Now, this is the really key one. The recent changes to the MPPF, the National Plan Policy Framework, mean that we will have a 5-year land supply fixed for a period of years now. And that's really important. That's a recent change in government policy, and we're here to benefit from that. And finally, we will gain from a significant amount of time and money spent on the plan. Though I would say that the 7 years taken is the average. It's been a long process, but that is the average. Okay, so just to go back, there's a legal challenge period after adoption. We will produce final hard copies of the documents and online versions. We'll develop an interactive map. And other work streams will be agreed through the second report, we're going to do shortly, and then through forthcoming cabinet meetings. Okay, so that's my presentation. I'll be very happy to take questions.
Good. Well, I think we're all delighted about the 5-year land supply point. I just wonder, I mean, life changes all the time, and this is that we're putting a stake in the ground for the next, well, certainly the next 5 to 10 years. It'll take another 3 or 5 years to create the successor plan, and work will start in due course. But whilst we put this stake in the ground, I think it's important that even though circumstances have changed, we're sort of locked in now. I've seen comments in the newspapers, and perhaps Mike, you might like to comment about the perceived potential of Anglia Square, for example. I've certainly been receiving comments about nutrient neutrality. These are all matters du jour. But as I understand it, Mike, and perhaps you could just lay it out for us for clarity, the inspectors have taken all those into account, and none of that disturbs, if you like, the security of the plan we now have in front of us. I know there will be people, and they've made representations to me, say, well, your plan's out of date already, can we have this site? Can we bring our own preferred site that missed out on all the assessment, now under the wire? No, the door is closed for the moment.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. So the inspectors, the hearings on the houses Shetra referred to earlier were prior to Anglia Square changed the Western Home Centre. They're not able to develop Anglia Square at present, or not able to develop Anglia Square. So the inspectors had to draw a line in the sand at some point, otherwise examination would never end. They did so prior to that Anglia Square decision being made. But whether they had or not, it made no difference because we still would have had a 5-year land supply.
And an extant consent.
And extent consent, absolutely. And it's critical that we do have Anglia Square in our plan. It's identified as a strategic regeneration area, and as a site allocation for Anglia Square itself. It's critical we do have that to give confidence to future investors in the area.
Mike, did you want to comment or add anything else?
Is that working?
Not yet. Has it gone green? No.
Oh.
I thought this was your I thought this was your council, Mike.
This is new. This
You keep pressing it.
I'll keep pressing it.
There you go.
Right, I press that, didn't I? No, I think what Mike says covers it, and clearly still extant planning consent. We're absolutely committed to bringing forward Anglia Square, finding a way in order to do that. We're working really hard in the background on doing that, but there are no indications in terms of the document plan at all.
Thank you for that. Sue, did you want to comment or?
Well, my only comment would be, it does look, people often say, well, this has taken an awful long while. But personally, I think that just shows how thorough it's been. And I'm very interested in reading the paperwork to realise that that's an average time. 7 years is average. So actually, that gives you more confidence that we are doing the right things and we have followed through on the way the plans should be put together. So I'm very interested.
Yes, Tom, Mike, yeah.
Just a more general point, not just about Anglia Square, but I agree with Sue. 7 years average, I noted that as well. My word, how long do some of these processes take? I wonder who manages to do it a lot quicker than that, clearly, if that's an average. That's quite interesting. But I think actually there is an issue about partnership working that we've sustained since 2015 and the maturity of the relationships locally with the number of councils we've got, with the different political compositions as well that we have managed.
Could use microphone. People online can't hear without microphone.
You have to
I
put
did
it
switch on.
closer.
Did I?
You have to put it a bit closer, I think.
I've never had this.
Matthew, you'll have to be the button presser.
Just done it again because when you touch there.
All right, okay. So, when did I switch off? Just for the benefit of people online, just wanted to pick up the issue about how long we've been working on this and the maturity of the working relationships we've got between all the councils and the different political compositions. It's quite remarkable that we have managed to hold it all together and that we now have a plan. I keep being told by Graham not to say we have a plan or to touch wood every time I say it because a week is a long time in politics, I'm told, but we've got a plan and that's really, really good news. It's really important for us. And when you think about the challenges to the local economy and the local area and for local people, particularly about the need for houses and the need for infrastructure to support them, really, we can't deliver that without this plan. But I think I haven't been here for most of the time, so I'm not patting myself on the back, but I think those who have been, it's a remarkable achievement to say, particularly considering the political composition. I think we've now got Labour, Conservative and Lib Dems represented ultimately around the table and working together on the areas where we can agree rather than disagree for the greater benefit of people locally, and that's to say very mature and really important.
Well, thank you for that, Mike. Kay, I know you're lately in the hot seat as far as County Council is concerned, and amongst your predecessors I've dealt with Andrew, Bill, and then some others as well. I forget them all, to be honest. I've done about 15 county council leaders over the years, but there we are. But I think it is, although it is in the name of the planning authorities, the 3 districts, I think our history of working collaboratively and hand in glove with the county is something to be celebrated. A partner to this plan, of course, is the way we generate infrastructure revenues. And I know that in many other areas there are arguments almost to the death between districts and counties about what constitutes infrastructure. It is worth noting that as a partner to this plan, our infrastructure list is jointly developed as well, is integrated, is on the same canvas with the same people and the same aspirations and the same baseline data. And no one was more pleased than me when our county colleagues changed their approach last year to allow the SIL money to leverage in more schools investment. So I think that's been a dramatic change in the provision there. But Kate, did you want to say anything from the County Council's perspective about joint working and how far we've come?
Thank you, John. Yes, it's good, isn't it, that we can all sit round the table together and get on, because we're all here for the same thing. We're all here for Norfolk, we're all here to serve our residents. It doesn't matter whether you're a county councillor or you're a district councillor, we've got to move together. And I'm hoping that now that I've become leader of county, that we have a more collegiate style. I want districts and county to work hand in hand. We've got devolution on the table now. We've got to actually all be on the same page. So long may this continue. I know that other areas look at us and they're not quite sure how we do it because they don't always seem to manage to do it the same way. But this particular forum has been going for some years now. It's a good basis for how we move forward in the future. And we here at county are always there to support you at district and make sure that we provide the infrastructure that's needed for Norfolk, for our economic success and for the success of our residents.
Good. Are there any other comments? Alicia, I think you wanted to say something.
Yes, thank you. I think I just wanted to really mention, which will be part of the plan, is the South Norfolk Village Clusters plan. Unfortunately, it's been delayed slightly, which is why it's not in there at the moment, but it will be coming, I believe, I don't know the actual, whether it's by the end of this year or beginning of next year, hopefully. But that was something that South Norfolk were made a decision. They didn't want to, if you like, fill up, bamboozle our main towns and service centres because they've already had quite a lot of development in the last local plan. And we also listened and realised that some residents actually like to live more rural. And some of these villages, small rural villages, are, if you like, dying because they're older generation living there, shops are closing, schools are closing, and those facilities won't stay open unless you have younger families moving there and giving that village a bit of vibrancy. So we have done a South Norfolk Village Clusters plan. We need to find 1,200 home sites, up to 1,200 houses. We've been out to consultation. We've had to make a few changes, which is why it's delayed and not ready to go at this moment. But I think with that included in the local plan, it's something else that I am proud of, that we've listened to people and have delivered, will be delivering that plan as well as this Greater Norwich local plan. So I think it's actually really excellent how we've done that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, well, there's only to prolong the proceedings any longer than we need to. I'd like to direct members to page 21 of the printed papers, where the recommendations are summarised. But before I do that, I just want to make it quite clear that I think we've all read all the papers, and in particular the inspector's report on the examination. By my reckoning, there are about 160 modifications. Most of those are textual in nature, or typographical in nature. So where we put exactly 30, the inspector may have substituted the word approximately, or there's very few matters of substance in there. I think we can take a huge amount of comfort in the fact that, that they've really ticked the box on some of the issues which we discussed earlier with Angus Square and so forth. There are a number of other changes which are covered on paragraph 39 and 40 of the report as well, including their assessment that this meets the Equalities Act and other relevant legislation. So having taken all of that into account, and the exhaustive nature of the process, the 8-year process we've got, what I'd like to do is just draw members' attention to the recommendations, and they are that the 3 planning authorities, that is Brolin, Norwich and South Norfolk, you recommended to note the inspector's report, which I've just referred to, the main modifications, of which there are about 160, there's an appendix, and in due course, and at the earliest opportunity at a council meeting, to adopt the Greater Norwich local plan as presented. I then understand there'll be a period of 6 weeks where there might be some challenge. Can we just identify what the nature of those challenges? Not liking it isn't going to be enough, is it, Mike?
So there are 2 grounds on which a challenge can be made. One, that it's not within the powers of the local planning authorities to produce a local plan. It is. And secondly, we haven't followed legal procedures.
Okay.
So the inspectors have judged that we have followed legal procedures.
Good. Well, thank you for that. I think that's important because having that external assessment that process has been followed and we are entitled to take the decisions we are. So, with all of that said, I'm going to propose the recommendations that we note the inspector's report and recommend to the councils that the plan is adopted. Can all those in favour please indicate? Kay, you're curtailed, I think. I've seen that hand look good.
Did you work out what was going on?
Yeah, Kay, you were sort of truncated on the screen, so we couldn't see your hand, but we can see the flagpole coming out of your head though. Good. Right, okay. Well, in that case, that motion is carried.
Excellent.
8 years, goodness me. Thank goodness I'm not doing this for much longer. I couldn't do it again. I've done 3 local plans now. That's enough for anyone. Right, let's now go on to page 117, if we may, of the printed papers. This is sort of the suggestion of, well, how do we start on the next one? A wag would say, well, this is a bit like painting the Forth Road Bridge. Just as you finish, you've got to start again. And yes, indeed, I think that is the case. On the 3 local plans I've done, the 2 successor ones, they were, well, it's taken so long. The next one won't last as long, and they always do. But I really hope that this time we can have a much quicker, more responsive and direct approach. Mike, do you want to lead us through a sort of suggestion of how we think the GNDP can continue? I'm along with Mike. We have come such a long way together since 2006. It's nearly a 20-year partnership. And when you think of the differences in our types of councils, the political control, the members, the change in members and staff, to have sustained that achievement is unique. I mean, there are others who do local plans, but none of them is quite as integrated as ourselves insofar as the infrastructure is concerned. I think it's really critical, not just for the councils, but for residents and business locally, that we maintain this partnership. So how are we going to do it?
Okay, so in short, we're going to continue the Greater Norwich Development Partnership. That's what we're proposing. So we continue the Greater Norwich Development Partnership. The role of the GNDP, and there's often confusion, because the role of the GNDP is about plan making. GNGB is more about implementation. So we continue the GNDP. That's the first proposal. If we look at the summary, and we do that through the revised terms of reference in the GNDP, just because of the passage of time, because circumstances change over time. We do have revised terms of reference in this paper. Then thirdly, this is, I don't have a presentation, but this is the element that goes a little bit more detail. We established a broad outline of the framework of the forward work programme and staffing for the partnership through this paper and subsequent papers that will go to the cabinets. And this paper also finally sets out potential national changes to plan making, which are likely to impact on the GNDP's forward work programme. And Councillor Phil, you'll be happy to hear that the government is proposing that plans in the future should take 3 years to produce.
I'll believe that when I see it. Okay. So,
Can I go into a little bit more please?
Please do,
Yeah. So, I don't tend to say anything about the other things, but the broad outline for the work programme. So, if we go down to the table, which is on page 119, I'm just going to highlight the main elements of what we propose that the GNDP will be dealing with. So we propose that the GNDP should meet twice a year as a minimum. And we haven't met for a couple of years because the plan has been as examination. But there will be more smaller issues to consider. So we're proposing twice a year as a minimum. The directors group will continue, and there will be an officer. It won't be a planning policy professional like myself, it'll be a project manager. The planning policy inputs will come from me and colleagues at Norwich and my counterparts at Norwich, the planning policy teams there. The first thing we'll be focusing on will be monitoring. So monitoring, you have to monitor as part of the Greater Norwich Local Plan is document 3 is the monitoring framework. So we'll be reporting back on the implementation of the Greater Norwich Local Plan, the monitoring framework. Second work stream, I mentioned in my presentation earlier, we intend to produce an interactive plan. Because the GLP is a relatively technical legal document, we would like to make something that's more approachable and that's more accessible. So basically, if somebody wants to find out what's proposed for the fields near their home, if anything, they can find it out quickly. So that's the intention, to produce something like an interactive plan that can be used online. Thirdly, project support will be required for the continued GNDP. So this is what the new project manager would have to be appointed would be doing. Project reporting, paying bills, closing down our current office, storage of GLP data, website retention, and project management. All these things need to be done to go forward. I mentioned earlier there will continue to be director meetings and GNDP meetings. Reports will have to be written for those, or meetings will have to be organised. And then, quite importantly, supplementary planning guidance, stroke advice notes. So local plans are often supported by supplementary plans or advice notes. So the ones we've identified that would be helpful. There's one on policy 2. That's to help planning applicants with policy 2, which is a very wide-ranging policy, to put together the best planning applications they can, covering, if you remember earlier I said they need sustainability statements, so it's about the sustainability statements. Policy 3 is about environmental protection enhancement, so we'll need advice on that, and that work on that is ongoing. Policy 5, this particular relates to the Norwich purpose-built student accommodation supplementary, I think advice notes in that case, I'm not sure. And policy 5, another policy 5 one, this will be for Broadland and South Norfolk because it will relate to self-build and custom-build wind and windfall housing development, which would be in the rural areas. And then the final one, which the next report is about, is the master plan for the East Norwich strategic regeneration area. So those are the main elements that the GNDP work will focus on. And then finally, we've got 2 more to do. The next one, new settlements evidence. This work is predominantly Broadland and South Norfolk because they will be dealing with this predominantly. We mentioned earlier that the government said that it will take about 3 years to do a local plan, but if you're going to have new settlements in the local plan, you need a lot more evidence. Therefore, work will need to begin on the potential for new settlements in Broadland and South Norfolk prior to firing the starting gun on the next local plan. Area-wide design codes. So I mentioned in my earlier presentation that government is now requiring us to produce design codes. We're very likely to produce separate area-wide design codes, one for Norwich and one for Broad and South Norfolk. Work is starting on these now. And finally, at some point, and this depends rather on what the government, what information government produces, a decision will have to be made on whether we review our current community infrastructure levy payments or implement the new infrastructure levy the government has been suggesting will come forward for a while now, but we need more evidence on that before we can make a decision. So that's all I'm intended to say now, but I'm very happy to take any questions.
Look, we've got a tension here, haven't we? We're just coming out. I mean, it feels like Churchill in 45, so well, now they've got to work for the peace. We've just come out of a really intensive piece of work. But if it truly is the case that the new local plans are going to take 3 to 4 years, be much more sort of less prescriptive and more sort of zoning in their nature, and we're going to try and compress what's taken us 8 years into 3. And I think I'm entirely aligned with the fact that we're just going to go back to the individual districts and not have, if you like, an overarching central resources we've had. But I would just suggest that we're really flexible about this. Circumstances will change. Let's face it, there's going to be a general election sometime this year, new plans. And I'd hate to think, well, we're going to sign this and this is it for the next 5 years. We need to be flexible and need to respond to circumstances as they are. I'm entirely behind the proposal as it is today, but if circumstances change, I think collectively we might have to adjust our position. I mean, take for example the possibility that, and it's sort of alluded to in our local plan, that we're going to consider the new settlement. At the moment, the settlement is, well, I can't, it's written in this. I'm going to turn the page again. New settlements evidence, page 123. That may come right up the agenda, in which case we need to be more flexible and put more resource to that. So let's be flexible, but I'm entirely in accordance with this. And Mike, are you comfortable with the proposal?
Yeah, I am, and I think I agree with the point about flexibility. I think there's always the elephant in the room is political uncertainty at the moment and what might happen or might not happen later in the year. So we need to be flexible to respond to that. And also, as you've alluded to, John, other changing circumstances, and I'm supporting. Clearly, we need to continue the work. But it does feel a little bit like we've just got a major piece of work over and we're starting all over again.
Yeah. Sue, are you content with that?
Yes, I think one of the things that you run the risk of actually is finishing a long piece of work and then thinking a few and stepping back a bit. I think if we've got to do it in 3 years, then we need to focus on it, and I think flexibility is a part of that.
Yeah.
That's how you're going to make it work in 3 years, not like being stuck to something that you originally set out with. So I'm happy with that.
Good. So a short period of rejoicing, as somebody before me said. And the other point making is that there's a slight change in tone in the sense that page 128, the chairmanship is now going to revert to the previous practice. I'm not quite sure why it was suspended, to be honest, but there we are. Our previous practice of rotating around the planning authorities, and the schedule by which that happens is laid out on page 128. So with all that said and done, are we content to go for the recommendation? And so at this moment, I'd like to thank once again formally Mike, you for your role in getting us to this point, and to commiserate with you for playing the leading role in the next one going forward. It is Groundhog Day, but also to all our other senior colleagues who have sat around the table here, including Judith, who I just see has just crept in at the last, and Sarah and everybody else. So thank you for that. Okay, moving along now to agenda item 8, and Graham. Oh, has Graham been gone? Well, that's why Judith has come in. Sarah, you're going to lead it. There we are. Good. Okay, I was slightly confused by the agenda. On page 131 of the printed report, Sarah's going to lead us through the East Norwich Supplementary Planning Document Progress Update. Sarah, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this report, starting on page 131, just provides an update on progress with the East Norwich Supplementary Planning Document and then proposed timescales for us to adopt that document. So as we've all heard this morning, the Greater Norwich Local Plan has been confirmed by the inspector's report, which includes a strategic regeneration area allocation for this site. And the production of the SPD document after it really is our commitment to kind of guide that comprehensive development to this really key quarter of the city. At various points, board members have been provided with an update about the master plan, the two-stage master plan and the SPD, which that came to in December 2020, and then subsequently November 2021, it's actually quite a long piece of work that we've been doing on this key site. And the stage 2 master plan was completed in May 2022 and reported to our cabinet in June of that same year. I'm not going to go through kind of the policy context, as you said, it's all in the GNLP. I'm going to kind of hand over to Judith to talk about progress that we're making to date and how we're going to share information with you. So we can all be aligned because it affects more than one planning authority area. And just some of the key amendments that we're proposing in that. So over to Judith.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been, thank you. This is very much a collaborative process involving discussions with officers at the relevant authorities, county, South Norfolk, Broadland and the Broads Authority, and also with stakeholders as well during the process. We started work on the updating of the master of the SPD in about September, October time, when the content of the GNLP policy became clearer and the notification process was concluding at that point. So, as I say, this is an iterative process. We are the starting point for the SPD is the new policy in the Greater Norwich Local Plan, and obviously things have evolved since work on that policy, and particularly site-specific allocation has been significantly restructured and changed since the submission version of the GNLP. The policy specifies a number of key infrastructure items that need to be provided for each site. That includes infrastructure relating to movement, connectivity, access, school and healthcare provision, amongst other things. Just also to clarify that the supplementary planning document covers not just the East Norwich strategic regeneration area in GNLP, but also the part of East Norwich which falls within the Broads Authority area as well. So we talk about the regeneration area, and that includes both the Broads Authority and the GNLP areas as well. So the SPD will supplement policies both in the GNLP and in the Broads Authority as well. So we're in the middle of the process of updating the SPD content. We have liaised with specialist officers at county and with our colleagues at South Norfolk and Broadland. We've actually shared about half of the content of the SPD with officers at the various authorities, and we hope to share the remainder of it in the next week or so. But as I said, it's an iterative process. We've also commissioned Alison Young to do some further work on who the consultants who did the master planning, to do some further work on advice on implementation and infrastructure requirements as well. So that will be all fed into the process. Just in very broad terms, the timetable to adoption is we're anticipating that the document has to obviously be updated with all the relevant graphics as well, and that will take a little bit of time. So we're anticipating taking the document to July cabinets and the Broads Authority in July as well. So that will be the City Council's cabinet on the 10th of July and the Broads Authority meeting on the 26th. I don't think we yet got the dates for South Norfolk, but you do have the monthly cabinets, so we'll feed that into the process. And then there'll be a 6-week consultation over August and half of September, and hopefully adoption by the end of the year. Thank you.
Good. Mike, did you want to add anything, or one of your colleagues perhaps?
Thanks, John. Yeah, just want to speak very much in support of this, of course. That won't surprise you. I mean, East Norwich is an incredibly complex site. There are 4 different landowners, which presents its own challenges. It's unique in being such a large site, so close to the city centre and the station, for example, and the Broads, the connectivity between the two, the city centre, those who live in the city and the Broads area is really, really important. It's a new quarter for the city. It's the size of 80 football pitches. That's how I remember it. I can't remember how many hectares, but that's how I remember it. And we've got to get it right. Absolutely, for future generations, we must get it right. So we need a high quality, sustainable development. We need to respect the historic buildings that there are there, the listed monument there. All of that's really, really important. There are some old warehouses which offer opportunities to repurpose and retain that cultural heritage. And then there's homes and jobs and leisure and the infrastructure to support it. And it's all encapsulated in the policies that we're developing. And some nice little touches as well, because there's a dog graveyard in the middle of the site. It contains about 20 of the dogs previously owned by the Coleman family, all individual graves, and it's a level of detail down to respecting that as well, which I quite like. I think that's quite nice. But seriously, this is a really, really important document, and this is really important for the city. It's the biggest urban regeneration site in the region, and as I say, we've got to get it right, and we need to, so I would commend this to you.
I think we can all sympathise and agree with that. It's a once-in-a-century opportunity with all the land. The stars are in alignment. Tim, you're going to break your duck. You're going to say a few words on behalf of the Brookes Authority.
Just going to say it's also a really important site for the Brookes Authority, both in terms of delivering housing, but also that connectivity between a great city and effectively a national park. It's a really, really exciting opportunity, and we're delighted to be a part of this development and the Greater Norwich plan as well. Thank you.
Good, okay, well, 80 football pitches. Are you sure there wasn't 620 Olympic swimming pools or parking for 1,500 double-decker buses? But it's not as big as Wales. These are all units of measure that people seem to judge extend by. There we are. Good, okay, well, I think we're all keen to see this progress, and thank you for your report, Sarah, and for your endorsement, Mike. Kay, you happy as well? I'm getting nods from around the table here. Yep, thumbs up from Kay. Perfect. Well, on the basis that that is agreed, that brings this meeting to a close. About 1 minute to go. And with that, thank you for your attendance. Hopefully people at home found it interesting. As I said in my opening remarks, it's 8 years' work and another sort of period to start painting the bridge again.